All right, we're live. Here we are. I'm so excited today because, as everyone knows, it's Mouth Breathing Awareness Month, and I'm really happy that I have Naomi Amador on here talking about her story because she actually has multiple stories. So let me just lay the foundation first on what we're talking about, though. So mouth breathing is like a red flag, canary in the coal mine symptom for much bigger problems with breathing and airway and orthodontics and craniofacial development in kids. And so what I've been trying to do in this month of May, which is Mouth Breathing Awareness Month, is shine a light on all of these amazing stories that I get to hear from the therapists and dentists and hygienists that I work with. I think if we can all share our stories and get this out to patients, then I think it might help a lot more people get treatment. So Naomi is here today. She's from New Mexico, Clovis, New Mexico, Eastern New Mexico, right?
Yes.
And she's going to be talking about her story. So Naomi, why don't you start off? Just tell us, how did you get into this? Because I know you have kind of I love your story. So
Okay.
how did you get started?
Well, my name is Naomi. I'm actually a hygienist from New Mexico. I've been practicing almost 9 years, and I've always been very passionate about continuing education. I'm kind of nerdy like that. I love to learn and sit in the front row and all of that kind of stuff. So this particular year in August of 2018, I was at a dental hygiene conference called RDH Under One Roof. A lot of you guys might know that conference. And that particular conference completely changed my life. I was sitting in class after class that were just really hitting really close to home. So within those couple of days, I became obsessed with learning more. So a little bit about those classes that I took three. It was like the perfect trifecta. I took a class with Debbie Z about sleep, and so that really built the foundation about how important sleep was.
Yeah.
And then after that, I took a class with Dr. Ben Moralgia and a myofunctional therapist named Lauren Gates, and they rocked my world. Everything, to looking at the airway first. And then from that class, the next day was a class with Trish O'Hare about mouth breathing. So all of you airway people know, if you've never had any kind of anything in airway, and then all of a sudden you get hit with sleep, airway, myofunctional, and then mouth breathing all at the same time, it really impacted everything about the way that I treat my patients now. So that was what started me really kind of getting into the whole airway world.
And when you were sitting in those classes, weren't you kind of, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, so I'm going to guide your story. But you were sitting there like, that's me, that's my husband, that's my kid, that's my family. Like, didn't you kind of have this mental checklist going?
Yes, I had multiple people. So as I sat in these classes, in fact, I still have the little notebook. I just started writing people's names down. I had friends and family and just people that I could think of from years past that had these facial features and these, specific just characteristics that I all of a sudden recognized, when all the light bulbs start going off, all of a sudden, just like they say, you can't unsee it. And I simply could not unsee what I had learned. But the one particular story that really struck a chord with me as I was sitting in Dr. Ben Morales's class, I started learning about tongue tie. Yeah. And as I was sitting there, I had tears streaming down my face, and I knew that class was going to forever change one of my family members' lives. And that was my little niece, Sadie Grace. You'll see I still get teared up because it is such a powerful story. And as I sat there in that class, I realized this little girl has a tongue tie, and this is what has been her challenge. So I'll go back to talk about Sadie Grace. Sadie Grace, she's 3 years old now, and she has been on quite a journey since birth. Sadie was born premature at 36 weeks and was in the NICU for 22 days. Wow. And of course, during that time, she had a feeding tube. And when she got out of the NICU, she was never able to actually breastfeed on the breast. My sister did pump and gave her the breast milk, but from the time that she got out of the hospital, we knew very early on that we were up for some challenges. My sister in particular was extremely concerned because Sadie would cry constantly cried. And I mean, hour after hour after hour, she would cry. And she was in the hospital about 2 hours from where we lived. And so the entire drive home, she cried. And my sister's like, you know, something's wrong. We're calling the doctors. And she's colicky. Everybody would say she's just really colicky. And so this went on for months. And another particular symptom that we noticed is that she would scream in the car seat. And I mean, the entire time, if she saw the car seat, she would scream. I mean, just going from my sister's house to my parents' house, I mean, she would scream the entire time. And so my sister and her husband really just stopped going places. In the midst of that, they were seeing the pediatrician. My sister was calling everybody she could, trying to find out, what can I do to help her? Sadie was gassy. She was, of course, given medication for acid reflux. She was labeled a colicky baby. When she was eating, it would take over an hour for her to drink about 2 ounces. And so she was constantly just exhausting herself trying to eat. The milk.
Was that your sister's first baby?
No, this was her third baby.
Oh, wow.
So this was a very different experience. Yeah. And so the milk was just, I mean, the entire time she would just make such a mess. She would go through so many bibs, and she would go, I mean, she would drool constantly. And again, I mean, she was consistently constipated, crying. She just could not ever get comfortable. Well,
did anyone ever like screen her for a tongue tie in the hospital, or did your sister look for lactation support or anything like that? Did anybody actually look in her mouth at what was happening?
Well, nobody actually ever looked in her mouth, not even myself. And, you know, at that time, I didn't know what I didn't know. I did not know to check those things. And in the hospital, no, she said that nobody ever looked in her mouth or anything like that. And so she just thought, okay, this is what I'm up against. We're dealing with colic. We'll just, you know, they say 3 months. Well, 3 months, it was still not better. And at this time, you know, my sister's really, you know, having some hard days because this is not getting any better. And fast forward a little while, you know, during that time, we knew that we were seeing some delays. But the pediatricians, everybody were assuring us that she was fine. She was just a preemie. That's all it was. She would catch up. And my sister was concerned because her other children were also preemies, and she knew that something was different. There was just something that was not right about this. And so when she was around 10 months old, she had, my sister decided she wanted to call the early intervention and see, you know, if they could screen her. At that time, they realized that she was developmentally at a 3-month level as a 10-month-old.
10 months, wow.
And so that was the first, even though we knew something was not quite right, we didn't, you know, understand what exactly it was. And really it was the early intervention team that set the tone to say, hey, there's more to this. You know, we need to get some other specialists involved. She needs to be screened by developmental doctors. And they really encouraged my sister to start really pushing the pediatrician and asking questions and so on and so forth. So immediately she started, you know, physical therapy, occupational therapy. She started in those 2 therapies. And then they scheduled a meeting with everybody to lots of specialists. It was like 7 specialists that were all going to evaluate her. And that's when she was given the diagnosis of spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. And that was in April. So she was 1 year and 3 months old. Okay, so this is fast forward to 1 year and 8 months old when I am first realizing about a tongue tie. And I'm thinking back that she hasn't been able to eat, drink, swallow. She, at this point, was not able to chew. She was not eating any solid foods. Well, yes, I know the cerebral palsy plays a huge role, but if you have a physical restriction, that's going to play a huge role as well. During the course of that, I skipped at a time where my sister was really just looking for answers, and she sought the care of a chiropractor. So when Sadie was 13 months old, she first took her to the chiropractor, and that first initial adjustment, my sister said she was able to tell a difference immediately.
Wow.
Her bowel movements became more regular. That was a big struggle that she was having, and she did not cry in the car seat.
Wow.
So up to 13 months, she was still consistently crying every single time She was in the car
That's
seat.
like not just traumatic for her, but for your sister. Oh my gosh.
And the
Like,
entire family. You know, she also
oh,
has 2 other children. And so that's why I said they literally did not really go places because it was just so hard. And so that was the first, you know, my sister was like, something is different here. Something is really happening here. You know, she's happy. You can tell that she's no longer, you know, in the pain that she was in the car seat. And, you know, when you think back in hindsight, how it's all crystal clear. But at the time, again, when you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, maybe explain what you see now so that anyone listening is like, what do you mean? What did the chiropractor? What's the difference?
So,
What do you know now?
so, you know, there's lots going on with the fascia and the alignment of the body. And if you've got a problem cranially, you're going to have a problem all the way down the body. And so, you know, because she was not really able to move, she was in, you know, constricted positions a lot. She didn't really get the tummy time and those types of developmental things. She was just really, really tight. Well, of course, now we know that a big part of that was the spasticity from the cerebral palsy, which again, that, you know, I don't certainly pretend to be an expert on that, but that has a role, but there's such a role in the alignment of the whole body and how it all works together.
Yeah, it's super interesting because, yeah, I mean, of course, you can't say that, oh, the tongue tie is like the cause of all her problems when there's such a bigger thing going on.
Right.
But it's one piece of the puzzle, and if that little piece can help in any way, then is with her quality of life or your sisters or the whole family, then that's important. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
where are you now? Or I know because this is still a journey that's ongoing, and
yes.
I'm curious, you know,
Well,
what other
when
symptoms you started to see.
okay, so when I first learned about it, I came home and I told my sister, we've got to find someone that can screen her. And so we found, you know, I'm from a rural area, so we had to travel a bit of a ways to find somebody, but we did find someone, and they evaluated her and they said, yes, absolutely, this needs to be revised. And I'm happy to say that the day that she got her tongue tie revised, she went from drinking 2 ounces in 1 hour to drinking 10 ounces in about 10-15 minutes. This poor
Whoa.
little girl had been hungry for so long and was working so hard to eat. And all of a sudden, you could see the difference. At this time, she was also only saying about 5 words. And now, I mean, immediately within the first week or two, she was saying up to 20 words. And so it was a huge, remarkable change that we saw just in a short span of time. And I think back, had I never been sitting in that class, I would not have ever known this. And she had seen so many different specialties, but you don't find it if you're not looking for it. And unfortunately, not a lot of people were looking for this. Even myself, I would think I'm a dental hygienist that I would see an obvious tongue tie, but I didn't because it wasn't an obvious tongue tie. And so, again, it's crystal clear in hindsight once you start putting all the puzzle pieces together. But now she's actually doing great. She started, you know, eating, and although she still has quite a bit of struggles because she had so many aversions. Think about how long that we were trying to transition her to solids and trying to transition her, and she just simply couldn't do it. And so she does feeding therapy, and she does lots of therapies now.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
What did you guys notice? Did the tongue tie, I mean, what did you see with her breathing? Was she mouth breathing?
Yes, she was consistently mouth breathing and consistently open mouth posture all the time, drooling. She would get rashes so much right here because she always had her mouth open. And so that made a huge difference. Now, she still has some struggles, of course, because you're dealing with a complex medical issue. But if you can take that one piece of the puzzle and make it better, then, you know, it had a huge impact in her life. And then since then, she's gone on to have a pretty serious surgery, a pretty life-changing surgery. So I'm happy to report that last October, she had a surgery called SDR, selected dorsal rhizotomy, with the famous Dr. Park at the St. Louis Children's Hospital. And after 53 days, she started taking steps. And so It's amazing now. Now she's at 257 days, I think it is, and she can take up to 20 steps.
Wow, that's
And so
amazing.
it is amazing. And the thing about it is, my sister didn't think that she would ever be able to have that surgery because you had to be crawling. She was not crawling. She was not sitting up. She was not doing all these things. After she got her tongue tie, I think it was not the only thing that made a difference, but because she, at that time, she was doing lots of occupational therapy, physical therapy, got her tongue tie released. It really, really got her to that stage where she could meet the requirements to have that surgery. And so I really feel like the tongue tie was a big piece of the puzzle because, I mean, a week before that, her doctors were talking about a feeding tube. She wasn't gaining any weight. She was not eating. And so my sister said the GI looked at her a little bit funny when she said, so my sister went to this conference and she learned about tongue ties and we kind of want to explore that. And thankfully he said, you know, okay, I'll let you guys explore that. And sure enough, you know, it made a big difference. But where would she be, you know, if I had not happened to learn about that? I just think that who knows where she would be now, but I'm so thankful that she's made such a change, you know, in the journey that she's on, because I was able to, you know, help solve one piece of the puzzle.
Oh my gosh, no, that's really cool. And yeah, you're right. If you hadn't been in that course, in that, you know, conference, listening to those specific lectures, because at RDH Under One Roof, there's a lot of different lectures you can hear, and you heard those. And, you know, it's just like I said, that little piece of information that can make such a difference. So did anybody, I mean, I don't know the story behind like her sleep or breathing as far as like nighttime goes, but is
Yes,
that all
that's definitely been a struggle. She did have a sleep study. She was found to be within a normal range. However, as you know, very different opinions on those types of things. She did have 0.4, you know, AHI, which of course I say that is, you know, a concern. But everybody, you know, reads things from a different perspective when they're reading those types of sleep studies. But so she always had open mouth. She always had chronic congestion. Now she has recently transitioned quite a bit into more of the solid foods and got off of the bottle because that was truly one of the only ways she could eat. So she just actually recently got off of the bottle. And so now our goals are to continue just teaching, you know, nasal breathing and encouraging those types of things because she's just 3, you know, so she's not able to quite do myofunctional therapy and whatnot, but we are able to instill the types of nasal breathing and educational things to
even
help
just
get her down.
stimulation of the mouth and face? I mean, there's a lot, probably her OTs and PTs are doing too. And
yes.
she's doing feeding therapy.
Yeah, she gets great therapy. She's in, you know, in school. Of course, now there's no school, but she was in a program through an elementary school where she got services, and then she also receives them privately. So she has got a big journey ahead of her, and truly, she is the fire inside me that got me. You know, initially when I started learning about this, I told my husband, I have to take these classes because I have to help Sadie. And if I don't help anybody else, that's enough for me. You know, I just want to help Sadie. And of course, along the journey, you realize that there's a whole lot of other people that, you know, have symptoms, and particularly in my family, to a point that it's kind of overwhelming. You know, no one wants to sit next to me at the Thanksgiving table because, you know, you really, it's hard to find that balance of the things that you see in, you know, your family members, and kind of really being able to have a conversation that's not threatening. As you know, sometimes your family members can sometimes maybe not take you as seriously.
And sometimes too, it's like, you know, if you're like for me, I'm the big sister, and you know, I think it's easy to take my help or advice as being like, oh, that's just Sarah trying to be like big sister and boss me around, you know, or that kind of thing, which we all have these family dynamics that make it a little bit more challenging. But I think, I mean, it's so common that again, that's why I'm hoping that things like this will help get the information out, and then we can all realize like, wow, this is so under recognized and underdiagnosed. That's kind of like my catchphrase, I feel like.
Yes.
So.
And so that's a perfect segue to talk about what's, happened with my little one. My daughter's 3, and we've kind of been on a journey with her and her, all of her airway concerns. So do we have time to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
sure. If you want to talk about, yeah, go for it. Or any. I mean, you can
Okay.
definitely.
So Kenny, my little girl, she's also 3. She'll be 4 in August. And during those classes at Under One Roof, she was also going through my head thinking about all of her sleep issues, because she had always had sleep issues. And I was never able to breastfeed her. And it's funny because, again, when you go back in hindsight and you put all those pieces together, even 3.5 years ago, I was not looking at any of this, and my own daughter has tongue tie, and I just thought that I was unable to nurse. At the time, my pediatrician kind of teased me that my body just didn't remember what to do because my kids are 16 years apart, and I really honestly thought, like, maybe I'm too old. I really, and it's funny because in hindsight, I must have been postpartum to not, really take that. I didn't know any better. I just took that as,
Yeah, no one does.
I've done the best I can. I've tried, and I just, I guess I'll just have to bottle feed. So we bottle fed her, and we noticed that she had a runny nose almost her entire life. She was runny nose. She always had her mouth open, and she was sick all the time. She was a very sickly baby and toddler, and she almost kind of still is. We're on the journey now, but she she started having night terrors when she was about 2 years old. And this was also right around the time that I went to that conference and first started learning about it. And it's hard to watch, when your 2-year-old, wakes up every single night and crying and hysterics, and everybody tells you they'll grow out of it. There's no really rhyme or reason why. You just do the best you can. But at that time, when I first started learning about sleep, I realized this is not just a she'll grow out of this issue. There's some real issues that, we need to get to the bottom of.
Do you want to talk about the connection between night terrors and sleep issues, just really quickly, so maybe people can learn?
Well, you could probably explain it better than I can with the night terrors, but a lot of it just has to do with what's going on in the sleep and the different sleep stages that you're getting into. And she had such disturbed breathing that she would stop breathing, and she would have these episodes of, she would just wake up gasping, but she wasn't fully awake. And I would find that she would kind of have an episode of that before she would have the crying episodes. And I don't know how to explain the science behind it, but
it's the body kind of gets stuck in fight or flight. And I think there's a lot of, like, if you're waking up, I mean, adults will do it. If you wake up and kind of like, and your heart's racing, it's a lot of times a sign that you had stopped breathing and your body jolted you awake with that push of adrenaline. Or you are about to stop breathing and you're more in that like sympathetic tone state where your body's alerting you to, arousing you to wake up before you actually have the blockage or the apnea or hypopnea. So it's a lot of people will talk about having nightmares where they feel like they're drowning, where they can't breathe, these kind of scary things. And I can only imagine that in a 2-year-old, even if she probably couldn't remember, but you wake up scared,
Yeah, so she was scared all the time. Another thing that we noticed with her sleep is she was really, really hyper at night. I mean, like clockwork, 8 o'clock. I mean, this little girl was bouncing off the walls nonstop. Overtired and just, but we really, and we still struggle with getting her to sleep. And so, here I am. Okay, so I'm first learning about it. Like, what do? We got to get the nasal breathing. So we start, seeing the pediatrician. And at that time, the pediatrician I was seeing was a little bit more conservative and took the wait and watch approach. And, of course, I'm very passionate and I'm very gung-ho and I want to solve some problems. And so, I'm saying, well, let's look at some allergies. Let's try some different things. So in the mix, I had to find some providers that were a little bit more open to some of the things that I wanted to discuss. I knew that
it shouldn't be, I mean, we both know it shouldn't be normal to just have a constantly runny nose. Like that it's like, okay, why is there a constantly runny nose? Like, what should we be looking at? Like, what's the level below, right?
Right. And it kept being like, well, let's just try this medication or that medication. Okay, come back in 3 months. And I'm like, it's not normal to have a constant runny nose every day of your life. And so during the course of that, we ended up finding out that she had severe food allergies. So, you know, you want to talk about some chronic inflammation when you're allergic to milk, eggs, and peanuts, and you eat milk, eggs, and peanuts almost every day, you're going to live in a state of chronic inflammation. So, you know, I really dealt with a lot of guilt of not doing more sooner because, you know, those were her primary foods that she really loved to eat. And so, you know, we went on this journey.
Talking about that, but she would just be like, why can't I have cereal or whatever she wanted? And you're like,
she wants eggs. She wants eggs all the time. She loves eggs. And so like to this day, I still hide like eggs from her. Like I will go in another room and eat some eggs because it's something that she really, and she's 3. So, you know, it's hard to explain. Nowadays though, she'll tell you what she's allergic to, but she had these food allergies and, she still was having, you know, a lot of runny nose issues, lots of breathing issues, lots of open mouth all the time, lots of hyperactivity. And I said, you know, I want to see an ENT. So we went to the ENT and he said, oh, I don't need a sleep study to tell you that this child clearly has sleep problems. And it was the first time I was like, yes, like, thank you so much. I mean, I felt like I was going a little crazy because you know, not everybody was looking at the same things that I was looking at with her.
Like, am I being like a crazy parent, or like, is everyone around me just not seeing this? Like, who is it? You know, it must be me.
Yes, of course. And then especially when you're very passionate. I mean, I read everything, watch everything. And so, you know, I might be a little bit extra for some people. That's okay. But,
which is, again, that's why I wanted you to share this stuff, because I love your enthusiasm and I love how many classes you've taken and how passionate you are. And so I know you have a good story to share. So thanks again for doing this.
Yes. So we ended up getting her, so the ENT said, yes, we need to get her tonsils out. So this was like in May, and he said, but she only weighed 27 pounds at the time. And he was really concerned about that. He wanted to maybe wait a few months. And so that was pretty heart-wrenching to me because finally it was, yes, she has class 3 plus tonsils, which, you know, for those that we're talking about, we're looking at the size of the tonsils and how much space is in there when you open the mouth and see. And so a 4 is going to be all the way touching. So a 3, she had a 3 plus. So she was very, very inflamed in her tonsil area.
Were the adenoids as well, or just?
And the adenoids as well, yes. And her nasal turbinates were extremely inflamed. Well, she had gone her whole life being, you know, having all these food allergies and us not knowing. And so we did everything to try to be conservative. You know, we eliminated all the foods. We did the steroid nasal. We tried to do everything to see if we could get some shrinkage, and it just wasn't happening. And so when she did, you know, get to 30 pounds, he said, okay, let's go ahead and get these tonsils out. We scheduled, and unfortunately, she was so sick. She, at that time, had a double ear infection, and because she stayed chronically sick. I mean, even though we had eliminated the food allergies, she still had a chronic runny nose every single day.
That was like December, right? Was that December?
So we were supposed to get them out the week of Thanksgiving, and that had to get pushed back because she was sick. So we ended up doing it at Christmas. And we did it at Christmas, and even still then, right after she got sick, she ruptured her eardrum. She had a double ear infection. She had croup. And so she still had a lot of issues. And
so she got them out though. She had the surgery. And then after that, she got super sick. Oh, geez.
After that, she got super sick again. And so her sleep has still not quite improved all the way. We're still seeing some of the nasal breathing. Some of the mouth breathing at night. We're seeing improvements, but we're still seeing a lot of the moving around in the sleep and the noisy breathing, particularly. So I went back and I said, okay, at what point, what do we do now? You know, and he said, well, let's wait a little bit because it really hadn't only been a couple of months. And so now And now we are going back to see, okay, what's the next game plan? Because we've done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, now
We've got all the nasal breathing, and that's one thing for people to understand on this journey is it is a journey. And I'm really thankful that I've gone through the journey myself with my daughter, because it gives me a lot more understanding for how challenging it can be for parents, because I can tend to be a little more forward with what I want to say, but not every parent is.
no, it's really hard to go and say, like you said, to your pediatrician, like, is there anything else we can do? What about allergy testing? Like when you're the one who has to kind of push these things, not all parents will do that. They'll just be like, okay, well, the pediatrician said it's fine, so we'll just go on with our life, you know?
And so it's important to understand what's normal and what's not. And so as a hygienist, I feel like I spend a lot of my time educating patients, because I'm uniquely positioned. I'm in their mouth, and I spend a lot of my day planting seeds, just giving patients the little tidbits of information that's easy to digest, because it's a lot to throw all of this information on people, and that can be challenging, especially for us very passionate people. We want to help everybody. And so, and that's one thing, like I'd say, I'm thankful that I've had to go through the journey, because I understand it's not as easy as just go see this doctor, get this done, go see this doctor. It really does take advocating for yourself, advocating for your patients, for your children, for your family, so that you can help these people on their journey, because you don't know what you don't know. And there's a whole lot of things that I didn't used to know. And there's a whole lot that I still don't know. In fact, the more classes I take, the more classes I want to take, because I realize there's a whole new rabbit holes to explore.
For sure. And I think I'll just mention it really quickly. We won't go into it, but primitive reflexes, this is, I think, the next level of like, oh my gosh, we all need to be looking at that. But I had another thought while you were talking. Maybe all of these mouth breathing awareness videos are something that dental offices can start sharing. You know, because there's going to be, I guess, 31 stories by the end of the month. What if I put, you know, each person's like symptoms and stuff bulleted, and then it's like you could use it as a reference, like go listen to Naomi's story, go listen to Dr. Courtney's story, go listen to Megan's story, Kimmy's story, you know, whoever. That might be kind of a cool thing to be able to tell patients.
Absolutely.
Actually, now I'm thinking about it.
Great idea there.
Well, let's wrap it up. I mean, I love that you talked about those, you know, probably the two most important little girls in your life, right? Yes, your daughter and your sister's
my driving forces,
Sadie and Kenny. Yeah. So, yeah, I think if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can just find me on my Facebook. It's Naomi Amador on Facebook, or you could, my email is myolife.naomi@gmail.com. And then if you want to follow Sadie, Sadie has her own social media account. So she has Sadie Grace on Facebook, and she has Sadie Grace _XO on Instagram. And so my sister, she's really great about posting a lot of her journey, and it really is a beautiful story when you see a child taking steps that was not able to take steps not that long ago. It really brings so much joy to watch her, because she's the happiest little thing. I mean, you can't not smile or get teary-eyed when you see some of her videos and the joy that she brings to everybody that she's around.
Yeah, so I'll make sure to link that. I think that's really cool. And I know that you have an Instagram too. That's, I can't remember what it is, but it's you, Angie, and Hilda kind of all together.
My favorite Myo girls. Yes, so it's Myo girls on Instagram.
I love that. So maybe maybe we can link that. I don't know if you want everyone finding you on there, but might be something kind of fun.
I'm not in charge of that. I'll get Hilda to. So I do want to give a shout out to my, you know, I've had two friends that have been on this journey with me. Hilda and Angie, we call, you know, ourselves, we're our favorite Myo girls, because we just get together and we get to share our experiences and stories with each other. And that's one thing that I will say about the airway community. All the people in the sleep, airway, myofunctional, all things tongue tie, all of that community is really just that. It's a community. And it's amazing, because you see all the same people at all the conferences that you go to, and it's great to have that support from other providers that, you know, even if you're the only person in your area that might be talking about some of these things, it's so great to go to some of these big conferences, like things
Yeah.
from the AAPND and all of the, anything that's airway friendly. You're gonna, you know, you're gonna meet some like-minded and
For
people that will
sure.
probably end up being your colleagues and your friends, just
I
like
love it. And that's why I want to be able to, you know, feature all of you guys and just get information out there. And because, yeah, I think we are like a really small, cool community, but it like needs to be mainstream too, right? Like it
Yes.
needs to grow. So, but everyone in it is so passionate, so enthusiastic. I think because we all have personal stories. So, you know, you can't help, I think it was Maggie Graham, Dr. Maggie, who said, you can't help but get passionate about this when it affects you and your family. Like
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
can't, like, how can you ignore it, you know?
Right. And
You
once you
become,
start looking for it, you can't unsee it. And then all you want to do is like spread the good news or like teach other people to help other people, you know.
exactly,
So
yeah.
that's my goal, just keep spreading the word and educating patients and educating parents and family members of what's normal and maybe some things that aren't, and then how to basically have those conversations and advocate for your family members.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this. I guess we'll wrap it up, but I really appreciate your time and that you were willing to share your story. I think it'll help a lot of people. So,
Right. Thanks so much for having
yeah,
me.
thank you so much. I guess we'll just talk later.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.